Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at how to recreate some music from The Batman, and I'm going to have a look at the flying scene. So where he's in the police station and he climbs to the roof and then he leaps off and he flies. So I've had a listen to the song and I've loaded up my orchestra template here. So I've got all my brass, all my strings, woodwinds, some more brass, percussion, and everything. I've got my template available for any of you who want it to download to use on your own scores. It's available on my Patreon. If you'd like to become a member, I'm going to be uploading regular content on there. I'll be doing more of these film scoring videos in more depth, and hopefully it helps you guys learn something, and you can hopefully apply what I've taught you to your own film scores and your own tracks. So we'll get started. So first thing, what I'm gonna do is, so I've listened to the song and I've loaded up Ableton here, and I've put in little markers just where we're gonna do each little section. So we're gonna start the track here. We're gonna start building, so adding in the fifths and the higher octaves. This part here will be when he gets on the roof. And it's got something like, I'll just show you this. So strings, it has something like this. Over the top. And what I'm doing there is I'm just holding the note and then I'm pitch bending it on the keyboard. Anyway, that'll make this will make more sense when we get up to that part. All right, so let's start, and we'll start with, so I'll load up these plucky basses. Where are they? I'll have timestamps in this video too, so if you just want to skip this boring part, you can just go straight to the flying bit. I've got timestamps in the description. All right. I know it sounds pretty lame on its own, but trust me, we'll build it and it'll sound cool. So that's going to go all the way through to there. So now I can open this up and we'll quantize these guys, Control A and then Control U to quantize. So we're going to loop these guys across to fill in this whole section. All right, so next, so now we've got to thicken this up. Now let's add in some heavier strings. So what we can do, we can actually just grab this and loop that or duplicate that. So just click and drag. And what I think might actually be cooler is if we add a higher octave to this guy. So just to thicken it up some more. So Control A and let's drag this up to there. There we go. All right, if we play them together without the click. All right. That's sounding pretty good. Now we're going to add in our Celli. So let's go to our ostinatos. And we're going to play this in that low octave. All right, I played that a bit sloppy, so let's go ahead and quantize that. So Control A, Control U. And what we can do actually, that's a cool trick to make this sound more realistic because we're using sound libraries. And I'm assuming some of you don't have the ability to record a real orchestra, which would be great, but since we don't, we have to resort to sound libraries, which is good too. You know, actually, fun fact, the big film scores that you hear, they do still use sound libraries like this. So often what will happen is the composer will create the soundtrack or create demos, and he or she will create something like this and write the soundtrack and score the film. And then they'll go ahead and re-record everything with a real orchestra. But sometimes if the sound libraries sound better, or for certain instruments they prefer the sound library, they'll just keep the sounds from the sound libraries, which is pretty cool. They might even keep both and then do a blend and blend in a bit of both. But a cool trick we can do, sorry, going back to this, is we can play with the velocity of each hit. So if I just solo this, let's make that looped all the way through. Actually, first what we'll do, let's have a look at these notes and have a listen. We can play around with the velocity of each note. So if you hold Alt on your keyboard and then drag that little node there, or this little thing here, that is the velocity of the hit. So how hard or soft the note is being played. So if I lower all these, you'll hear the difference. So this is playing at full capacity. And if we lower these, so velocity is very different to volume, which is something I used to do in my, when I started film scoring and creating music like this, is I would just kind of lower the volume, so which isn't great. So that's what can cause your music to sound less realistic. So what will happen is you will have your instruments being played hard or aggressively, but just lowering the volume, and it doesn't sound realistic. So you've got to imagine if you were in there with an orchestra and you've got your brass playing loud at the back, they would be loud. If you want your strings to be quieter, they have to play softer. So in order to get them to play softer is you lower the velocity. You don't lower the microphone volume, So so using sound libraries, it's great to get your volume levels at a spot where you're comfortable, but then kind of leave the volume where it is. And don't play with that too much. You can a little bit when it comes to mixing, but if you want more, dynamics, and you want your strings quiet, and then you want your strings loud, and then you want your brass to come in, and then you want your woodwinds or whatever, it's best to play with velocity. So what we're going to do now is we're going to loop this for the entire section. So let's play this back now with the basses and see how it's sounding. All right, we're getting there. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate this track and we're going to bring it to our violas, which technically is the same sound library. But the good thing about sound libraries is every time you play a note, where is it? Violas, ostinato. Every time you play a note, I'll show you an example, it's not the same sound being played. So every time I hit this note, it's not just the same sound on repeat. So every time I hit, it's a different recording each time. So by duplicating our Celli onto our violas track, which technically is the same sound library, the notes that are being played audibly are different, which makes it sound different, and which adds like thickness and layering to the track, which is a little trick. But what I would like to do to this guy is add the fifths that we were playing before. So and we're just going to blend this in to with the Celli. So we're going to drag this up to F, and that should be C sharp. Beautiful. Let's play that all together. All right, it's starting to take shape, which is cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these Celli, and we might bring in the Celli a bit later. So let's move these guys up to the basses. So we've got our bass section done, and we've got our violas. We're going to leave the Celli for now. We might come back to the Celli later. All right, I'm thinking though what we should do is thicken up the bottom end a little bit more. This is another little trick. So we'll get our sustained bass notes, and we're just gonna put this in there just to thicken it up even more and have another version of that bottom end. Another thing you can do as well, which will make your songs sound more realistic, since we're using sound libraries, is not quantize absolutely everything. That is also a good trick. Now, I think we can leave the bottom end violins for now and we can move on. Now, what I think would be good is if we have just a bit of tension building throughout this intro. Okay, so next thing is we need to add in our timpani drums. So let's go down to our, we've got our timpani or timpani, timpani. Somebody let me know. I still don't know how to say it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that sound across multiple sound libraries. Don't think I'll play that one just because that's a bit heavy. I'm going to have this session available too to download for you guys. All my sessions are going to be up on my Patreon. So if you guys want to download session files and have access to my settings and things like that, they're all available on Patreon if you'd like to go over there and have a look. You will need to, however, find a way to get or purchase the sound libraries, but you don't have to use the exact same sound libraries as me. You can load up my session and you can put on your own drums, but you will be able to, you will have the MIDI tracks and things like that. But same with the strings and everything. You could use your own string sound library like Spitfire or whatever there is. But yeah, but you'll have the MIDI notes and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's put in these timpani drums. Well, we're going to need the click. Man, it sounds pretty lame on its own, I've got to say, but I am going to quantize these drums just because I'm a drummer and I'm get a little bit crazy when it comes to drums and being perfectly in time. And we'll duplicate these guys across all the way to that roof. That's going to be a cool part. And what I'll do is I'll just bypass it quickly and just mute the drums so you can hear the difference. So they're playing soft, these timpani players, but they're in there, which is good. All right, next part. Now there is these big drum sounds in the film. So let's have a look. All right, it's sounding cool, but I've put way too many in, so I've got to back it off a bit. So I actually think this part would be better here in the build. And here, I'll just back it off a bit. So we'll delete maybe every second one. All right, I actually think we might need some violins. So we're very right orchestra heavy. So our basses and our celli and the violas are kind of middle, but we need something on the left. So let's go to our violins. Violins are usually seated, or most often always seated on the left. So let's load up them. That might actually sound cool if we just have a repeat of that going on the left side. So could be a little bit different to the real song, but it's sounding pretty cool. So let's chuck it in. Okay, it sounded pretty good, except I made a mistake there. Quantize that. All right, what I actually think is this build part now, we need to go back to the strings and we're very right heavy, as I was saying before, so I think we still need to add a bit on the left. So I'm going to go back to our violins and I'll add in, like how we were talking right at the beginning, how we said this track is very it's kind of, it is quite repetitive on that motif. But now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the violins, and what we're going to add is the first, fifth, and then we're going to go up again, play the first, but the octave above, and then the fifth again. And we're going to kind of, you'll see what I mean once we do it. So that'll add to that feeling of rising and building, kind of like how he's heading up the police station tower, up the stairwell. It's building, 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 building as he gets to the roof, and as he goes over the edge, that's where the music is going to change. And I'm excited for that part. That's right there. And then we've got the epic flying section. We'll get there. All right, let's add in these fifths. I like it, but what I think we should do is kind of just delay where it comes in. So we'll just shorten this, move this over, and just make it come in a little bit later. One thing I've noticed is those drum sounds, the big kind of flam sounds. I think we need to add a bit of a layer on top of that. I loaded up some snare drums here, and I'm pretty sure I've got a nice kind of flam sound. Let's have a look. There it is. So what we're going to do with this is every time that drum is hit, we're also going to layer that with our snare. So let's give that a shot. Right, so that was cool. Let's loop that to that guy. And I played them a little earlier, just behind the beat, so that can kind of roll into the beat. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back down to the drums, and we're going to start thickening up that bottom end, get like a nice slow rumble. That kind of sounds like Batman Begins, actually. But I think they could be nice at the beginning of every bar. So let's chuck those in. And the trick is to be subtle. You don't want all these things right in front of your face. You got to have some sort of depth, and you want things loud, you want things quiet. You don't want everything right here. There'll be a time for that. But yeah, the trick is to kind of just blend things in layer by layer, until it's, you know, sounding pretty cool, which I think it is. We're getting there. All right, so let's continue with this. We need a few rumbles now, leading into those beats. So I've got some timpani swells or timpani rolls here. All right, now we're going to blend that in. There we go. So if I just play you the drums, this is what we have. So I can kind of imagine the percussion section playing this, which is good. Now we have to go to our cymbals and chuck in some cymbal swells. All right, guys, I think we've got our first section pretty much done. We can go through it later and fine tune, or I'll upload the session and you guys can kind of remix it if you like. Let's get on to the roof part. So from memory, this part plays something like, let's go to our strings basses. Okay, I recorded that without a click. So let's make sure that's in time. Almost. Okay. Now we need some timpani drums to back that up. So let's go back to our timpani or timpani. Somebody please let me know. Timpani, timpani. Pretty sure it's timpani, but I'm not sure. All right, so we've got our timpani drums. Now we're just going to back up those strings hits. All right, so for this one, we're going to record that tension kind of string pitch bend. So from memory, the track has like, once Batman gets to the roof and he kind of sees the edge and everything kind of feels really dizzy and woozy and he's a bit afraid. We've got something like this. And that's going to lead into the leap. So let's have a shot at it. We'll see if we can get it on the first go. All right, that sounds pretty cool. And I think we can just play that kind of Bruce Wayne motif underneath, but quiet. Okay, now let's blend that in. All right, and I think it might also be a good idea to loop these guys through. Let's see how this sounds. Now going into that flying part, we need a low impact and we need a drum swell. That should also be going into the roof. And we'll put one here as well. Okay, so now we're gonna add a cymbal swell there as well. Let's find our cymbals. We definitely want a cymbal swell going into that flying part. Let's have a listen. All right, that's sounding good. Now in the track, something I really, really like is there's a harp. That the harp is probably playing through the, most likely it's playing through the entire track, but you can't really hear it. We could go through and add it, but I don't think it's necessary. So, and the way I kind of do this is I try to replicate what a harp would do, when the players kind of do that nice lush sound. All right, something like that. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to change that top note to a C sharp. We're trying to replicate motion now with this, trying to get it to sound like a real harp, which is often tricky. But let's see how this sounds. It's pretty good. I think we can probably lower the volume on it a little bit, just kind of blend it in. All right, I think we've done that roof section. Now let's fly. All right, so for this part, we're going to go back to we're going to grab our strings from the beginning. We're going to grab those and we're just going to loop them through. And then we're going to add on top of that. We're going to add some octaves on top. We're going to add some brass, like trumpets and horns, some bigger drums. And yeah, let's start. All right, so I've gone ahead and looped just our strings from the first part. But what we're going to do now is we're going to add some higher octaves and some higher strings and things like that. All right, now let's quantize that. And we're going to loop it. And we're also going to add a octave on top. And then that's where it crashes. Okay, now we're going to do that same thing. We can quantize these, join it together. Oh, sorry, we can consolidate that. Now we're going to put these on our strings, our second violins, but we're going to put that up an octave. Okay, now let's add in this timpani drum. I think for this part, it might be cool just to kind of stay on that same note. At least for the first half. I know it's sounding very repetitive at the moment, but once we add in those horns and the brass and that kind of motif, it's going to sound good. So let's actually do that now, so we don't go crazy just listening to this thing on repeat. So let's go to our brass, horns, nasty, here we go. Okay, so for this, we've just got his Bruce Wayne or Batman motif. And that comes in right on that where he leaps. Okay, it's getting there. Now we're going to open that up. I might not quantize this. I might just leave it, except for that first note, just to make it sound a bit more realistic. Put him on a lower octave as well. So I think at that part, we should add a higher octave horn. So let's go to our horn. Okay, it's getting there. Now, a really cool thing that I love about this soundtrack is their use of the bells, or the tubular bells. So I've got some here. Tubular bells. And let's chuck these in just as he's about to fly. Okay, it's coming together. Quantize those. Now I think on those second hits though, we need like a crash cymbal. So let's go down to our cymbals. Where are they? Here we go. And we'll just put those on like every second hit, just to accent that bell strap. And then on that one, we want right at the end there, we want a swell going into that crash. Let's beef up these drums a little bit. Sometimes when you're listening to the tracks, you can't really hear every little detail. I'm sure there's like so much more happening. Like we haven't even touched woodwinds, which we might not need to. But I'm almost certain that there would be woodwinds playing in this part. Like I'm sure there's so many things happening that we haven't chucked in, but we'll just have some fun with it and see what we can come up with. But I do think we need some kind of quiet drums in there, like that, just at least for this section. All right, let's hear that with the music. It's always scary when you're starting off a section and you're starting one element at a time and then you're getting through it and then you think this is not sounding quite good. And then you get pretty worried, but that's normal. That is very normal. When I do film scores with my brother, that happens quite a bit. And my brother will say, hey, it's like, this isn't sounding good. We need to thicken it up. You know, we need to add layers. It's like, yes, like one thing at a time, you know? So, but anyway, one thing at a time. Okay, so we've got our strings, our brass, our drums. It's all sounding pretty good. What we need now, though, is some trumpets. And from memory, I had to listen to the song earlier. From memory, there's something like a chord being played on top. Whoop, that scared me. It's not those. Where are we? Trumpets. Short. Here we go. It's kind of like a chord that sits on top. That just kind of plays through this whole section, which is actually really cool. I like how the composer, I think Michael Giacchino, somebody please let me know. Is it Timpani or Timpani or whatever? Is it Michael Giacchino? Let me know in the comments. I need to do some research on how to speak better, it would seem. Okay, it's coming together. Let's quantize these trumpets. Made a few errors there. I don't think we've done our timpani drums yet. So we've got one there, but we haven't done the other one. And I think this is it's going to add a nice fuller sound to it. All right, for this section, I kind of want to play it like as if I would be playing the drum myself. So maybe we can do something like change up the pattern a bit so it's not just... maybe we can kind of do something like... And then we go... Something like that. Okay, we're almost done. Just that cymbal right at the end, it's a bit out of time. So we've got to move that back a little bit. Okay, final stages, guys. We're in the final bit now. All right, now for the ending, this is where Batman's flying and then he, you know, pulls the parachute and he crashes into the bridge. There's kind of like a falling sound. So we need our string sound effects for this. Awesome. Now I think we should play around with the volume here a bit and then we can fade it off as it hits the end. All right, guys, I think we've done it. Let's have a listen to the final product. Awesome, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see this tutorial in more depth, the entire video is available on my Patreon, as well as the session file. which you can download. You'll have access to all the MIDI tracks that we just created in this video. And this is the template that I use when I score my own original music for films. I'm more than happy for you guys to use it. I hope it helps you. And I wish there was something like this available for me when I was starting out as a composer. You know, I had to learn basically everything. I had to learn what are the celli, what are the strings, what are the violins, what's the brass section, who is in the woodwind section. But yeah, I hope it helps, and if there's anything you guys would like to know in more detail, just ask me. I love making these videos for you guys, and I hope you learned something. If there's anything else you want to see, just let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.